That time of the year again. Deshaun Tate back with you. Tate's Take the Podcast. Find it anywhere you find your favorite podcast. And remember to follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, where basketball lives. Without further ado, a lot of craziness, a lot of moving pieces going on right now. Want to bring in my special guest for the day. That will be none other than Mr. Jay Bilas. Um, NCAA college basketball analyst and color analyst for ESPN. Find him on Twitter and on Instagram at Jay Bilas. Jay, top of the morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
Good morning to you as well. First question I have for you: you're there in Greensboro covering the NCAA ACC conference tournament. Talk a little bit about what the atmosphere is like. I mean, Georgia Tech's getting ready to move on to the championship round of the ACC conference tournament after Virginia had a player that tested positive. What's the atmosphere like down there right now?
Well, there isn't any atmosphere because there are really no fans here. So they've got a few thousand fans, but it's so sparse that there's no atmosphere in the games. The first couple days went okay, just as you'd expect or had hoped. I guess I shouldn't say expect. Can't expect anything. But then when Duke, had its positive test and had to bow out of the tournament, they took on a little bit of a different feel. And then this morning, just got the news about Virginia. So having, as far as I know, the ACC is the only conference that has had teams that were playing in the tournament and couldn't continue to play. So, Florida State and hasn't played yet. Georgia Tech has played a game. They're going to get a day off and then play in the championship game. Just a very odd happening.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is everybody's keeping their fingers, toes, eyes crossed, everything else that this thing is actually going to be played. Hopefully, I guess what was it, a year ago today? Take me back. Does it have a little bit of a similar feel at all? I mean, granted, I'm not trying to hope it gets canceled or anything, but does it have a similar feel now that we have, teams that are being tested and play or someone within some of these programs that are testing positive? Does it have any kind of a similar feel and take you back to that a little bit?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it reminds you of it, but it doesn't feel like that at all because we know what we've been dealing with for the last year, so we know how to deal with it. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have pauses and problems and things like that, but I don't think there's any way we're going to see any of these events shut down. And like we did last year. I mean, last year the world shut down. We were just late. Sports was just late. All these teams, their campuses had already shut down. They were still trying to play in a tournament. It seems bizarre to even think about it now that, the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic and we were pinning everything on Rudy Gobert. But we're gonna finish the ACC tournament and we're gonna finish the NCAA tournament, and this thing's gonna roll on no matter what. So if teams have to bow out, that'll be unfortunate, and you feel for everybody, but this train isn't stopping.
What exactly do you make of, I guess you could say, Duke voluntarily, I guess, concluding the entire season, not just the ACC participation tournament part of it? What do you make of all of that in general?
Well, they were done anyway. They weren't going to make the tournament. So, with a win against Florida State, maybe they had a chance. They might have had to win again. But without it, they were not going to make the field. So the only thing would be, an invitation to another tournament, whether it's the NIT. I don't know if the CBI is even going to play, but it's going to be a period of time before they're capable of playing anyway. So it just made sense that this was the end. So that didn't surprise me at all.
Jay, what do you say to some of the maybe highly critical people based on the decision that have been made that feels like maybe this is, and I'm not trying to question integrities by any means, but to the people that have been highly critical of the decision made, that feel like maybe this is Coach K's out or he was looking for based on some of his previous comments made earlier in the season about maybe that the whole thing should be canceled and so forth.
That he was looking for an out
in a roundabout way, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I find that ludicrous, frankly, and he never was looking to end the season or anything like that. I think there was a period of time where he was thinking, and I was too, asking that, we take a hard look at exactly how we're doing this and whether it should be done this way. That's a responsible thing to do. And at the time, people don't want to talk about this now, but at the time we were looking at a steep rise in cases, and now we've had cases going down and all that. We still have issues. I mean, there are 50, 60,000 cases a day, but during that period they were heading up toward 300,000 when he's, and that was the start of it. So it was a fair question, and that's one of the things that's funny about this whole thing is, if you ask a question about, well, is this the right thing to do? Should we do it this way? You're painted as being against the process, and
Sure.
everybody wants to play. Like, I want to work, I want to go on vacation, I want to go to restaurants. Everybody wants to do all this stuff. But if you question whether it's the right thing or whether we should do it this way or that way, or whether, at the time the issue was, can the players go home for Christmas? That was when that was being discussed. And I had brought up the reason that Coach K said that in the first place was, and I didn't realize this at the time, but the media landscape had changed, and there were no media at the game. They were all watching it on television and listening to us do the game. And I had brought up that it seemed to me that the players are now essential workers, and they're getting tested. Like, look at all the hoops we're jumping through to do this, and we're not doing this for any other endeavor in campus life. Like, other students do things that are really important to them, and every bit as important to them as basketball is to a basketball player, football is to a football player. But we weren't doing anything so that they could, participate in their chosen field. And how many non-athletes at any school have been put on an airplane by their school? The answer is none. And so that was the question. And we can't even let the players go home for Christmas because they have to remain in total isolation so that they can be revenue drivers. So that was the question I asked. I wasn't saying I wanted to shut. You think I want this to shut down? I want to
Sure.
work.
Sure.
But because there was nobody at the game, they heard that, and media asked Coach K the question. He was responding to a question that he got that was prompted by something I said. So he wasn't out there banging some drum saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that. But because of his platform, everything he says has a little more weight to it than the average Joe. And people are saying, oh, now because he lost this game or that game, that's why he's saying this. And I think that's kind of ridiculous. But it's like we can't even have a discussion about whether this is the right thing. Clearly, we can do this, but the question is it the right thing to do it, and to do it this way?
Sure.
Is it the right? Like at the beginning of this, and here's I've rambled on this, but here's the issue to me. At the beginning of this, the NCAA said no students on campus, no college sports. Well, they changed that, and then they said we will never play in bubbles. We will not. We are not the NBA. We are different. We are amateur. We are not professional, and we're playing in bubbles. The players in isolation. What's the NCAA tournament? It's a bubble. They even trademarked the term "battle in the bubble."
Battle in the bubble. Yep.
It's a bubble, and it's an isolation bubble. Nobody's allowed to leave their hotel unless they're going to a game to generate revenue and to compete. So, like, these are all fair questions. And it's something that we as an enterprise should discuss. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure. And I just wanted to, like I said, I wanted to ask because I know some people were concerned. Well, if this was not a 13-11 team and it was a 21-3 team and things like that. So definitely, what better person to ask than to bring in Jay Bilas, NCAA college basketball analyst and color analyst for ESPN. Let me ask you this. When it comes to the teams that are going to be participating, who do you feel like outside of the Gonzaga, let's say they're not there, let's say Baylor's not there, let's say Michigan's not there, in Jay's mind, of who would be remaining, who do you think you feel the most confident saying can make a run, maybe be your front runner to win a national championship? Who has that type of team that would be next in line?
Illinois would be at the top of that list. And then I think, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, some of the teams out of the Big 12 are good and have a chance. I mean, a lot of it depends on your particular bracket and how it falls. If you have somebody fall down in your path, it's going to make it easier. And it's really not about the 68 team field. It's about each team's particular path as they go forward. Because one thing about a tournament, you don't have to beat everybody. You play in a golf tournament, you have to beat everybody. You play in a basketball, you play in the NCAA tournament, you only have to beat 6 teams.
6 teams.
And so it's just a question of who who's in your way, and sometimes the obstacles in your way, they fall down, and you don't have to worry about them. You got something else. So when a lot of times when there's an upset, it's not just that the team that got upset in that game, is out of it. There's another team that would have played them that has an easier path now.
Let me ask you this: if we are in the event, of course, hoping that we're not in a similar place 365 days from now with the COVID effect and so forth, when you consider all of that, should we expect somewhat similar seasons or similar performances, particularly even from some of these blue blood programs, because of the effect that COVID has had on their seasons?
No, I mean, I don't think this is COVID has affected everybody. I don't think the fact that Michigan State, Duke, Kentucky, and I'm sure there are others that haven't performed well this year, that's a function. I don't think it's a COVID function. I mean, I think, Duke and Kentucky had good recruiting classes, but they were highly ranked because of the number of good players rather than their players being somehow, superstar transformational players. Guys like that went to the guys in that realm went to Gonzaga, Oklahoma State, and USC. And then a couple of them went to the G League. So every recruiting class, number one recruiting class is different. And so there was no, Zion or RJ Barrett in Duke's class, and there was no Michael Kidd Gilchrist or Anthony Davis in Kentucky's class. So the truth is their players just weren't as good. And Kentucky brought in some transfers, and they just weren't as good. And Duke has some good freshmen. A couple of them got significantly better during the course of the season, especially Mark Williams. But overall, they weren't as good and weren't as prepared. Now, maybe they'll be as good in the future as they keep maturing to become, if they become sophomores, juniors, seniors, something like that. They'll have a more natural maturation as through the game. But Duke and Kentucky have been used to these superstar freshmen coming in and being ready to go right away, and these guys weren't. And that's what it was. But Michigan State's an older team, and they struggled like crazy. And so it's not just age. They weren't solid at the point guard position, and they've had some trouble throughout the season scoring efficiently, which surprises me, frankly. But you've had other teams. North Carolina struggle a little bit. You've had a number of teams that have had that for different reasons. It's just odd that it all happened the same year. Like I can't remember a time where we've talked about our the blue blood programs you're talking about turned into Cinderellas, trying to make the tournament, bubble teams. When was the last time all of them were struggling, scratching and clawing to make the tournament? It's really unusual.
No, it definitely is. If it's okay, I want to hold you just for about 5 more minutes, if that's all right. I want to move over, since I'm here in the Metro Atlanta area, over to a team like Georgia Tech, who's now moving on to the conference tournament championship game. We'll play the winner of Florida State and play the winner of Florida State and North Carolina. What would you say in, let's just say, best case scenario, best draw that they could possibly get in the tournament? What is their ceiling in the NCAA tournament? How many games could a team like this win?
Depends on the seed. So, and by that, I mean, I think Georgia Tech right now, with the season they've had, and it's been a really good season for the Jackets, they could wind up being like an 8 seed, maybe a 9. Now, there's good news and bad news there. The good news is, hey, they've risen up from double-digit seed territory to that. The bad news is you get a 1 seed. Yeah, your second game, you get a 1 seed. And so, can they beat anybody, in that scenario? Yeah, they can. But I'd rather avoid a 1 for longer. I think there are other teams, you'd feel better about playing in a second round game. But Georgia Tech's had a really good year.
Yes.
To have the ACC Defensive Player of the Year and the ACC Player of the Year, it's pretty remarkable.
And when it comes to Gonzaga, I feel like, and granted, it's certainly warranted for sure for the kind of season that they've had, all the positivity, all the optimism that there's been in terms of talks about Gonzaga this year. But I don't hear enough about reasons of concern. What type of teams or style of play, if you will, could give someone like Gonzaga some trouble? What are some of their, I guess, weaknesses, for lack of better words?
Well, they don't have a lot of weaknesses. They can be beaten just like, Baylor or Michigan, all that stuff. And who knows? Maybe if they played in the Big Ten, they'd have a loss or two. But, they played Iowa and beat the hell out of them. And they played
They
Kansas
did.
and beat the hell out of them. They've only had one game this year where they won in single digits. Every other game they won by double digits.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doesn't happen. And you look at any league, nobody's doing that. They're the only team doing it. So they're legit. I mean, they got a lottery pick. They got two lottery picks, Kispert and Suggs. And they've got the top 4 or 5 players in their league on their team, in their league, on their team. And, they can beat anybody. And so look, do I think Michigan can beat them? Yes, or Illinois, but it's going to take an extraordinary effort. And I think I'd favor Gonzaga in a 7-game series against anybody in the field, except maybe Baylor.
Except maybe Baylor. Gotcha. Who are you maybe the most confident that you believe will receive the final number 1 seed? Because right now it's Illinois. Illinois, obviously, there's probably not much of a lock to that. I'm not sure if you agree with that. Who do you feel the most confident in?
Illinois.
Illinois.
I think the Big Ten's garnered so much respect that it'll be Illinois, absent some horrifying loss they suffer in the Big Ten tournament. The team that could get in there is Alabama. I think if
Yep.
Alabama were to win the SEC, and you have a couple of stumbles in the Big Ten, but that's it. I don't see anybody else getting in there. But I guess it's possible. But I think Illinois will be the team that gets it.
I want to make sure I word this correctly. My last question. A coach like John Calipari has reached 4 Final Fours in 5 seasons at one point. That is also an institution that only hangs national championship banners. Uh, how how long is that leash? I mean, how tolerable and realistically sustainable is that when it seems like winning recruiting battles, uh, but you're not really the ones that are always standing on the ladders with the scissors in hand? How long is that sustainable? Something like that.
I mean, if Cal wins like he has the last 11 years, it's sustainable for as long as he wants to do it. They had a rough year this year,
Hmm.
but one data point does not make a trend. And that's
Sure.
sort of the thing with Duke as well. You could look at this one year and say, oh, well, the facile thing to do is for someone to say, well, this shows you that one and done doesn't work.
Hmm.
Well, what about all in the last 10 years since Calipari's been since 2010, since Calipari's been at Kentucky, who are the 2 programs that have won the most NCAA tournament games? Duke
That
and
would be
Kentucky.
hmm
Yeah, Duke and Kentucky, the ones who have the most one and done players, who's gone to the most Final Fours, who's gone to the most Elite Eights. They're right there with the teams that have won the most championships. So it's not like everybody else is doing it without one and dones. So there's a
hmm
lot of data to suggest that you have mixed results with that. The ones that are doing it with one and dones have had extraordinary success, and you have a hard time counting up programs that can match it.
hmm
It's really only a few. So, the idea that it is a difficult thing to win NCAA championships and reach Final Fours.
Absolutely.
And, you don't see a whole bunch of other programs doing it. And so my thing is, look, people don't have to like players that come in and leave right away. They don't have to like it. That's
Sure.
fine. That's a matter of taste. But
Yep.
saying that you can't win that way is patently false.
Man, I appreciate you for doing this. T minus 48 hours until Selection Sunday. I know you're a really busy man, and I want to make sure that I mention how grateful and very appreciative that I am for you joining the show on today. It's a very busy time for you. We understand that over here, and I just want to say thank you for taking out that time.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That is Jay Bilas joining us on today. Really appreciate him for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us here on the program. Again, I tell you guys all the time, you never know who you're going to get on the show. 48 hours ago, we got Dan Dockich on. That's still posted. Make sure that you go and find that anywhere you find your favorite podcast. For the audio version, we stream live on YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff, Twitch, Periscope, all over the place as well. So go back and check that out. And so that's what we're doing. Listen, where else are you going to get this information? Smack right in the middle of March Madness with a bunch of craziness going on all over the place in the country, really. But certainly within Greensboro, North Carolina, where players and so forth, or just people within programs rather, are testing positive. We're bringing the people on that are right there inside of these bubbles, and you're not going to get that anywhere else. So make sure that you do your part and subscribe to the podcast. I always say, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama, where they can find what I like to call the best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. That's none other than Tate's Take. Follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops. TATESTAKEHOOPS hashtag, we like to call it where basketball lives. So definitely want to make sure I threw that out there. And again, thanks to Jay Bilas, NCAA college basketball color analyst, as well as, or I'm sorry, color commentary, color commentator, and college basketball analyst as well, for dropping by and throwing some knowledge down on us about Duke. And want to make sure that I ask the questions that I know quite a few people wanted to know as it relates to Duke and Gonzaga and some of the other teams that can contend for a title and so forth. So I feel like we got our money's worth a little bit. Hey, look at this. Remember, survive in advance. That's what it's all about right now. It's all about surviving. It's all about advance, and that's this time of the year right now. So make sure that you guys go and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. I'm almost willing to put a couple dollars in your pocket if you hit that subscribe button and it takes you longer than 30 seconds. Share with a friend. Don't save it for the local barbershop. Don't save it for the local sports bar. Excuse me. You can get it all right here on Tate's Take. Again, where basketball lives. So go and give us a follow. A couple comments here from quite a few people that wanted to chime in and talk a little bit. From Todd Porter has always been a huge part of the show, and I want to make sure I get through this because I always promise people that you can definitely allow your voice to be heard, or at least allow your text to be read. Following us on Facebook, excuse me, Todd Porter, who's a very consistent and persistent supporter of the program. Great question about Kentucky. Well, thank you much, Todd. And then it's all about the recruiting as well, consistently, whether it's about the one and done or not. Big win for Georgetown last night over Villanova. Let's get a couple other people in here. Big baby Jonathan Saffold, I believe it's pronounced Saffold, also checking us out on Facebook. Keep doing the good work. Appreciate you, my brother Jonathan, very much. And from Tony Blackbutt, that's what I'm gonna call him today. Check out on Facebook. Salute, my brother. Really appreciate your contribution to the show. And you can be just like all those guys and contribute to the show as well. So appreciate you guys for sharing. Appreciate you for supporting and watching and listening the podcast. And I'll see you guys. What is it? We're going to be working with Selection Sunday. So I don't know. We might do something in 24 hours from now. Certainly within the next 48 hours, we'll be coming back on and talking a little bit about Selection Sunday. And this is the best time of the year, the best and the most unpredictable 3 weeks in college. And appreciate everybody for checking me out. So I'll see you guys then.